favorite car class? I can ask.
Man,
You can
I
go.
like
you,
them all.
can use the new gen or the X gen, basically.
I enjoyed direct drive stuff like in Clubby Light back in the day with the Yamaha.
Oh, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, so that's sort of why I continued on that path doing the 100cc stuff. When I went through and the new Army came in, it had the centrifugal clutch, so it was like less cool in that aspect, but still a phenomenal engine that had more power. And you should drive it like an old school engine, and people didn't really do that so much.
Yeah,
and like we had quite a big advantage for a few years in that category, particularly because someone who I learnt to drive from as well as like Remo Luciani, someone who's like one of the most successful drivers in Australian history. Yeah, and he would drive it like an old school kart, which is how he taught me to drive the club and karts, and that's just how I drove the iArmy because it's an air cooled 100cc. Engine, it was always on the airbox, like choking it quite a lot, and it was something that was quite rare. So you'd pretty much only really see me and Remo. So Remo's in heavies, I was in lights. You'd pretty much only see us doing it, but you'd see us like having quite good wins. Yeah, but I don't know, like people were just like, oh, it's like you don't need to do it these days, but like. Well, it's the same engine. Like, of course you need to do it these days.
So you drive it like a clubman, that class?
Yeah, man. Like
really?
On the airbox.
Still to this day?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit, I
don't really drive these days, but yeah, you should. Yeah. You should get one, and you should drive it like that, yeah. Yeah, and it should be easy for you because you would have done it back in the clubbing days. Yeah. It makes a big difference. Like, 2 degrees in your crankcase temperature is like what you'd experience from doing a good job choking, which sounds like nothing. Yeah. But, like, man, that's like 1.5 horsepower. Yeah, it like that's from
the box.
Yeah, man, it's like a lot. Like if you maintain your engine that well over a run, like at the end of the race, you'll experience like 1.5 horsepower more. Like your head temp will always cool down straight away. But
do you tune those new engines or not?
Yeah, so even the drivers that I help now coach and engineer, I tune them on the stand relative to the weather straight away. It's like just a skill that I picked up over time, and you never really need to tune it on the track. But yes, you should. If you're not doing that, then you're going to need to tune it on the track. But yeah, I always do it on the stand. I never need to touch it when I drive out there. I'm just on the airbox, man.
How do you know to tune it to the weather? That's actually quite interesting.
It's like it's pretty particular. It's pretty hard to teach.
So for people listening to this who are go-karting.
So for people listening, like it's so hard to teach when I'm not showing, like doing like noise.
It's all right. This can be an interesting coaching technique.
Yeah. So pretty much like the best way is to obviously start it up, warm it up, and then you want to be like loading up the engine like with the brakes. So you want to have it down to like 0 RPM. Well, not 0 because it's got a centrifugal clutch. It might be like slipping through it like 1800 RPM. Yep. And then you release the brake and you let it rev out. You don't want to be holding it forever. It'd be like a quick like sort of increase, and you can judge like how much it's revving out. So if you're experiencing like 15,000 RPM, similar to what you're doing on the track, then the thing's too lean on the stand.
Yeah, right.
You want that to be maybe like I would say on average between like 11.5 to like 12.8, depending on your gearing. Yeah. Because if you've got like a taller gear ratio, it actually revs up quicker on the stand. Because like obviously, if you're familiar with engineering, it goes like drive. So like when it's on the ground, your gear ratio changes compared to when it's on the stand, obviously. So like if you've got like really tall gearing, it'll rev up quicker. So that like you'd experience higher RPM. But if you've got like a bigger rear sprocket, which is typically like more torque, it'll actually like take longer to rev out on the stand. Yeah. So like you want to be in that sort of rev range, but you want to make sure that it's not dying down low. So if you're like boom and it dies, it's because it's too lean. So you got to give it more on your low jet. Yeah, right. So it's like it's a combination. It's a balance of your low jet and your high. You want it to still be ticking over, but you don't want it to be making your clutch slip. Yeah. You don't want it to be dying. Yeah. And then you want it to be revving out like within that rev range. And like once you learn it, you can't go wrong. Like there's like never been a time I put any of my drivers on the track and the tune's been bad. Like I've never used any sensors, like no temperature sensors, no like air fuel, like no EGT, like none of that sort of stuff. But a lot of the kids I help these days, there seems to be so much money getting around in karts that everyone's got all the kit in the boodle. But like you just look at the numbers and like it's always perfect. Yeah. So like if you can get that finesse, and it's gonna be a benefit because you see so many drivers you would see back in the day that just like wreck the tune and start going backwards. Yeah. Like they're like a great driver. They just might have slipped up on the tune.
I've done that once.
Yeah, you tune to the lights and like maybe your sensor's old, man. Like the lights ain't telling you like the most accurate stuff. That's why like you're always going to be accurate. Yeah. And you just tune it to the weather. Don't use a weather chart like or whatever you've got, like a weather station.
There's so many of them these days.
Oh, just forget it. Just tune it on the stand. You get it right. Like, yeah.
And do you just if you know when you're standing there, the weather's generally whatever humidity and temp it is, you'll know in your head what you're working with.
Yeah, kind of like
you said, rather than using like you're saying charts and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
Pretty much just how it performs on the stand is the biggest telltale. But like you'll get a pretty big reference. You can feel, you can smell the air, and cloud cover's a big one. Yeah. So like whether it's cloud cover or not makes like a really big difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, but it's definitely something that everyone needs to learn. Like a lot of people just like rev the hell out of it on the stand, and it's like why? Like why are you revving it? Yeah. All you're doing is fatiguing your engine. the thing's not warm yet. So like you're definitely going to need to do a top end before you should need to really. Like it's just yeah. You've seen people be in the pits like, like they can scream, I'm freeing it up. It's like, no, you're not freeing it up. You're going to cost more in rebuild. So.
Yeah, I was always careful when I was racing just to be like, as you said, just keep it at that certain point. Do you know what I mean?
You see, the thing is though, is like when you do it slow like that too, like that's how I would warm it up as well. But I would always have a race plug and a startup plug. So whichever at the end of the race event, that one will become my practice club plug, which will then be my starter plug. And then I'll have my race plug that's only used on track, because when you start it on the stand and you're revving so low, it's not really getting enough air and enough RPM to burn off the fuel. And because it's 2-stroke, to burn off the oil left on the spark plug. So you experience like a fouled spark plug, which is something I never experienced.
I'm just amazed how you figured all this stuff out. Like, when did you start figuring out all this go-karting?
I don't know, man. Engineering? Like I started working on my kart like pretty much the same time I was old enough to get a job. Yeah. I started doing all my mechanical work myself, which I was then able to just put an extreme amount of effort and time into it. Yeah. Picked up a lot of stuff myself, but also, you know, those names I dropped before, like Darren Hossack, Remo Luciani. So like that plug thing, I learned from Remo Luciani, and like a lot of the kart stuff I learned from Darren Hossack, Bart Price, like really incredible drivers. You know,
Did you write this stuff down, or did you just remember it by
memory bank? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Did your dad teach you anything as well?
Enough to keep the kart running.
Yep.
But he never he didn't have like too big of a background in racing. Like he did stock cars over in New Zealand. He was like quite good. Yeah. But it's like not really applicable to go-karts.
Yeah,
like it's pretty different.
You got to tell me about your dad's racing career then, because he's done clubman. What was it?
He did Rotec
clubman over 40s. Did stock car racing in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he moved over here when he was 18. So he didn't really race for that long. So like he pretty much like, I don't know if he probably won stuff here or there. I don't know. But he just raced in stock cars. Like over there, it's crazy. He's got to crash into each other pretty much. You got to be fast, but you got to be good at crashing. So like, it's pretty nuts, man. There's pretty big injuries that go on in that, because the bodies are so frigid and stiff, and you got bars going everywhere to keep the thing stiff. Yeah. Like, that's all the more impact to the driver, man. There's no absorbing going on anywhere, man. Absorbing's in the seat. Like it's crazy. Yeah.
Do you keep yourself? How do you keep yourself like floppy and relaxed? Because like some drivers, I don't know, go for a run before a race, and me, I basically sleep. That's my
really?
That's the way I get relaxed. And I even have. Do you have a racing like ritual? No. How you get into the car? You don't have any lucky undies or anything?
You know what? When I was a kid, if I was going good at a 2-day race event, I would keep like the same socks on and wear the same undies all weekend. If I started going shit, I'd change them.
See, that's exactly what I do.
I don't do that now at all.
Adulting now, Daniel.
Yeah.
Adulting.
Oh, you still do that?
Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to make you feel inferior. That's so funny.
Cracks me up.
Brooks always been like, I ended up winning the Formula 4 championship, but Brooke was like to me,
it's all the undies, baby.
I'll never live this down.
I'll never let it down. But I ended up trying to wear the same, like what you said before. And Brooke called me out. She's like, "You're not wearing these undies again, are you?" And I'm
like, "Are we talking unwashed?"
Yeah, unwashed.
You went between races unwashed.
No.
He was trying to.
Them in a loop.
No, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was trying to keep it unwashed.
Holy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And she made me stop it. And then in my head, it gets into your head like you're going to choke because something different's happened.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it. But at the end of the day, I still end up winning. But I was like, now what I've done is basically I have the same undies, but they're the same color. So in my head, it's
he's got duplicates of the same.
I've got duplicates,
but I still stand there and go, "Are you lying to me?"
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm a free baller anyway, so like I can't.
Do you free ball in your race?
Yeah, I'm free ball all the time, man. Like,
really?
I'm free balling right now. Yeah, let it hang, baby.
That's really funny.
That's classic.
But I wear socks though, so then even when I was a kid, I used to go to the same toilet cubicle. If I was going well, if I was going bad, I'd change cubicles till I was going good. Then I'd just stay in the same one. Yeah. But I'm not really a skeptic like that now. Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong in what you do. Yeah. You won a Formula 4 championship doing it, so let's keep doing what you're doing, man. So,
but do you have any certain things that you eat on a weekend too, especially for your national karting championships and stuff like that?
In the supercar, it's probably it gets hot in the car, man. It's always between 25 and 35 degrees hotter in the car than it is outside. Plus, you got fireproof underwear as you're aware with, what I'm sure you'd wear. And you've got your race suit as well as your balaclava, helmet, your gloves, your boots. It gets real hot in there. Yeah. So you always want to be having something that's going to give me good lasting energy. They're just pretty much eating clean. I'll be eating clean and obviously be as fit over the whole year, but mainly 2 weeks prior to a race event, I'll try to eat quite clean. But a lot of the foods I like. I do like some dirty foods. Like I like a good dirty burger and stuff. But like, it's probably more of like a Sunday meal, that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try and just eat like real clean, like pretty lean, but just nice and clean, really. Just not too many fats, but carbs and protein. So like carbs during the day and like proteins at night. Yeah. No, sorry, other way around. Proteins during the day, carbs at night is a good one.
You would have had to stay fit for obviously being in a band and racing though, wouldn't you? So would it be the same type of fitness schedule in a way? What would you be doing to?
Not really so fit for being a muso, man.
Okay,
like I mean, to be honest, like I'd always rock out on stage quite a lot, and I'd be tired, man. Like it's sweat up there, like just as much as a supercar.
Yeah.
But probably not really. I mean, you lose a fair bit over a race event in water weight in the supercar. Yeah, that's for sure. So I experienced quite a lot of weight loss over weekends just from water weight. But that comes down to probably not managing your diet good enough. Like at the start, I'd drop like 2 kilos in a race event. But that's because I didn't have my diet exactly how it should have been. So once, I was able to eat the right stuff and my body was actually able to take in the water instead of just drinking it and peeing it out, then I probably experienced a little bit less of that. But yeah, not so much fitness with the band. But yeah, like as you asked before, like about like pre-race rituals or pre-show rituals, like no, I don't have any. I just chilling, talking to whoever, like just talking to people, doing whatever, and then just getting in the car and driving. Like it's probably something I carry across from go-karts, because when I was racing for arrow karts, we'd have the team truck there. But my role was also like helping out other drivers in their team, or like anybody with that brand go-kart that would come up to the truck for some help. So like after every race event, I'd have to document my whole setup, like to every single stiffness, every single compound of everything on my kart. Yeah. And we'd export that to our dealer network and post it on Facebook. So like everyone always had my setup.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so like, because I was having to talk to so many people so much at race events, and then I just have to get in and drive in between, obviously working on the kart and engineering, it was always quite a busy schedule. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like easy for me, really. Because it's like sort of a bit more closer to normality for me. So like if I can just be a little bit closer to the way I am, which I'm sort of like chill all the time.
Yeah. You're a bit of a gypsy. I like it. You're very chilled. You just come in, you're like, yeah, man, I'll just hang out. I'll just you need to go to the toilet. There was no like, flow. Yeah, you just go with the flow. It's actually, it's crazy like what you've told Brooke and myself today, like how you like basically like pick up everything. You know what I mean? Like you've just got that knack, which is an awesome ability, which is basically what which has helped you with supercars, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess like as a kid, like I just used to like fuck around a lot. I don't know if you've seen the I also don't know if we can swear on this.
No, you can. We can
so I don't know if you've seen the video.
Fuck shit and everything.
Yeah, all right, we can say fuck and shit. Cool. Right, so I don't know if you've seen the video. It's like the more you fuck around, the more you find out. Yeah. It's very much so how like I lived my childhood of just like doing stupid crap and just like trying different things and learning different skills. And then I guess when I started working, like I worked in. When I first started work, I worked at a timber factory. My dad manages, like cutting timber. Like it was sort of something I had to learn, nothing serious. But then, once I actually finished school and started working properly, there was like so many different roles and stuff like that was included in my career there at DPE Kart Technology, which is like a maybe 5-year span or something like that. Yeah. So many different roles, so many different skills I had to pick up. It was always like just doing something. So it's like, I don't know, it's always been like quite easy in that sense. But it's, I got to play guitar as a kid. I got to race go-karts and I was still doing school sport. Like I was just always doing shit. Yeah. So it was probably, I don't know, probably something you just pick up.
But at the same time, you're working hard. Like you said, you went into the Super 2 you said, and you just studied it for 2 weeks, and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you pick it up, but you're also like, not to make it sound like you're not doing anything in a way. I'm just saying you really worked hard at these things too as well, because you wanted them, like your music career and the driving as well, which is like really shown in what you do.
Thanks. Yeah. It's like you're out there, like it's two things I've always wanted to do, and like especially this racing stuff, and it's just, I guess, not leaving any stone unturned. Yeah. Is that the right saying? Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, just want to do everything right. So yeah. But that's the biggest thing, like you mentioned before, about like me obviously managing my own career as well. It's just another control method that I can have over my career, of just making sure everything's done right. It's crazy busy. Yeah. And, like I said before, like, I've got to find the right person to manage me. It would be good because then I could probably step back a little bit more. But I guess the bigger sponsors I get, the more I can learn to step back and then probably do more driving stuff. Because to be honest, like I'm only ever driving at the race event. And that was something that Ben and Rach Eggleston are like, man, like you had like literally just like, you're doing a good job because you're just rocking up and racing and like beating a lot of guys. But I feel like you'd be doing so much better if you're doing all these other categories like everyone else. The reality is I don't have the money to do that. Like I'd scrape in every penny just to do Super 2.
Yeah. Do you train in go-karts at all?
I used to until I just ran out of time. But I am going to get a kart very shortly, get a van, and then like I'll probably go out like 4 days a week, man. I'll do mornings because like I don't really work too much in the mornings. I do my own sort of stuff in mornings and nights, and then like I'd say my peak period talking to people and going to meetings is probably from like a 10 till like maybe 5:30 p.m. So 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So like I was thinking before that, you know, I go to the track at like 7, do a few hours, come home, and then start work. So I'll be like driving all the time. So looking forward to that.
I feel for me, like I'm karting on Friday just for my Bathurst prep.
Nice,
like
good, man. That's good, yeah.
I got to know from you because you're a sim racer as well. But do you find karting more efficient to your training, or do you find sim racing?
Like karting, without a doubt. You're actually driving something. It's real. Like sim's not real, man. I know I'm going to offend a lot.
Oh, it's all right. Tony Kanan wrote this on Twitter.
It's a video game. Like, you know, I know it's pretty realistic, but it's not the real thing. So like, it's not the real thing.
Tony Kanan was saying on Twitter, he's like, what is sim racing? Is it a video game or is it like a sim thing where you learn? Because the old school drivers like myself and a few others, like you have said, it is a video game. And the thing for karting is, for us, is you can feel it on track. Do you know what I mean? Like there's just that element where, and it also makes you sweat. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely. I think, as you just said, like being able to feel something under you, you're driving in real life with pedals, wheels, and engine, all that sort of stuff. It's still applicable. Like it's clearly applicable because, you know, we managed to go quite good straight away when I stepped, you know, we spoke about before when I stepped in the supercar and I didn't do the other categories. So it shows you like, to be fair, I was sim racing when I was younger as well. So who knows, maybe they both contributed. And without a doubt, like not to discredit anyone's passion for sim racing here, because I think it's great. I just don't have the time for it. But it does teach you plenty of stuff. And I did do sim stuff, as I mentioned before. You did
over lockdown and that cash converters championship. Was that it?
Yeah. So I did both. I've done both of those. Yeah. So I had a sim for the first one. So Track Racer kitted me out with a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
And then for the second one, I just borrowed my friend Bill Caracolis, went around to his garage and we just have a Barbie, and then I'd hop in and do the E series and then pop back out afterwards. So
Do they? How does it work for Fox Sports? Because they were televising it, and Brooke,
live,
Brooke and I were watching it once, and we're like, "Hang on, this is a computer game that's on TV." Like they full take it seriously though. Like all credit to Supercars, it is pretty cool because, as you said, it's hard to get a race car on the track all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and it was good because, like when we did it last year, obviously the calendar was running. The first time it was, you know, it was needed to get, I guess, some television rebates and stuff that Supercars would be getting. This time it was for a different reason. You know, it was a fair few fans wanted it back. So yeah, we did the second E series and it's good fun. Like you kind of forget that you're on camera because we've all got a webcam like streaming back. Yeah. And so like you're eating dinner or something. Like I was like eating pizza on live TV. They like got me on like because I did endurance race. I was like eating pizza and like I kind of forgot. And I had the stream next to me and I saw it. I was like, oh, idiot. Like, yeah. But then after that, I was like, oh yeah, like you could probably play this muso thing a little bit. So the next enduro, I had my bass there because I always got my bass in my car with me. So I was like, got it out, I was like playing the bass and I like, let's probably get that for like, you know, 10 minutes. And I had like sponsor logos behind me. So I upped the value for them, which gave me a little bit of firing power. So like it, you know, sort of milk it a little bit. I wouldn't say like over really milk anything like that. Sort of just try to keep it natural. But like after that pizza incident, I was like, oh yeah, like if I pull my bass out and I start slapping it here, like they're going to put it on TV. Sponsors behind are going to be happy because their logo is going to be on television. So yeah, it worked out pretty good. Cool. But it's good fun. It is an opportunity for us to get a little bit more exposure. Guys like myself that, you know, aren't in the main series yet and have a desire strictly to be, like it's just another opportunity to be up against these guys and have a bit of fun and just more exposure to the Supercar fan base. Yeah.
Before we get to the Fast Five, have you heard of the Fast Five?
No.
Okay. It's a game show.
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon. Anyway.